Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Africa, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. America, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javanokelo, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.
Thank you so much for joining me for an amazing session of the Daily African Proverbs. We are live streaming on Clubhouse, and we're also here with you on YouTube. And today is going to be an amazing day. I have a special guest here with me, and I'm just going to go ahead and introduce her for those who are already here. Just give me one moment. I do see that we've already been joined here by the goddess. Thank you so much for being here. I want to just invite you, Gogo, Rutendo, Ngara, say hi to our friends before we begin our session today.
Greetings to everybody, and I'm hoping, I know for some it's very early in the morning, some of us are going towards the evening, and just many blessings on this day.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And, today we have an amazing proverb from Somalia. And, this proverb is really exciting for me because it reminds me of another proverb in Luo, in Luo, my mother tongue. And, I'll read this proverb first. A thief is always under suspicion. A thief is always under suspicion. But in Luo, we say, Jaricho ringo, tuonge gimalawe. It basically means if you've done something wrong, you're always running, even if there's no one coming after you. So this proverb is going to be the center of our conversation today, but we have an amazing program where we are not only going to dissect this proverb, but we are going to learn a few things. I have 3 takeaways that I'll share with you in a moment that we prepared, with my team before today's conversation. But we also have a couple of things that Gogo Rutendo is going to share with us today. One, Gogo is going to share with us her perspectives on this proverb. What does she think about this proverb? What does it remind her about? What is her interpretation of it? And then we'll talk about, the African spiritual perspective on a proverb like this, And then from there, we'll talk about what Credo Mutua would think about this proverb. And then we'll engage you all in today's conversation. So before I say much, I just want to invite you, Gogo, to just share your perspectives on this proverb while I set up the rest of our program today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Simon. It's really interesting. Our proverb today is a thief is always under suspicion. And as I reflected on it, I felt that there's a bit of a thread from the proverb you cast me with last week, which is, you are who you pretend to be. So there seems to be something around deception, that seems to be a common thread. Except that this one is a little bit more extreme, I think. We've moved from pretense now to theft. And once one has that identity, it becomes a mark, you become tainted, and therefore you are forever under suspicion, regardless. Now, I thought, okay, let me first start by seeing what is the definition of a thief. And, the one definition said a person who steals another person's property, especially by stealth, without using force or threat of violence. Another definition said a person who steals, especially secretly, or one who is guilty of theft or larceny. Another definition said one who commits the act or crime of theft, or one who takes something without permission or without the other knowing. And so there's this issue of property, there's this issue of guilt, there's this issue of crime, there's this issue of permission. And there's also this issue of not knowing, of secrecy, which seems to be surrounded around what a thief, tends to be in. Now, I then looked at some synonyms, and I came up with almost 48, almost 50 synonyms for a thief. So it looks like a thief is a very interesting, certainly in the English language. There are just so many variations of what a thief is, and there's just some ways that a thief could be called. And it's interesting because some of these names are names that Credomucha loved using. A thief is sometimes called a rascal, it's called a crook, they may be called a robber or a pilferer. They may be called a scoundrel or a bandit or a filcher or a larcener. I mean, these are all names, for what a thief could be, But you also have different levels of thieves. You have petty thieves, you have pickpockets who, maybe, just wanting to, to pick at a bit of money from your pocket, or maybe your cell phone here in South Africa, you know and then they may scale it up a bit, and you have shoplifters, those who will steal from a shop. You have housebreakers, or burglars, who, are going to perhaps specialize in people's homes. You have those who operate on the streets. You have muggers, so street robbers. And sometimes, many of these may be nonviolent as per the first definition of what a thief is. But then we start getting a bit more intense. A thief may be called a hold-up man, because many times in order to get what a thief wants, they have to resort to threat, or they have to resort to violence. So they may hold you up. They may be called a highwayman, especially when they're on the streets, that they may be a hijacker, and here in South Africa, we have a lot of hijacking, people who violently take away your car while driving, maybe when you've stopped at a traffic light, etc. But in the olden days, we had pirates at sea. They were also, forms of thieves. And then there are those that take advantage of general disturbances, of riots, or natural disasters, and they become looters. They take advantage of a situation. But then you have those that tend to rove around looking for prey, and we call them prowlers, and so this is just all these different, aspects, of what a thief is. But then there are those whose targets are not necessarily the home or, personal property, but wildlife or animals. And so you have rustlers, who really go around, stealing, especially cows or, kind of domestic animals that form great wealth, But then we also have poachers who go into the wild and who are shooting wildlife. Here, we have it, and especially in Africa, you'll have your elephants for the tusks, your rhinos for the horns, your lions for the claws, for the skins, and all sorts of things that are required for the wet meat market. But beyond the animals itself, you then start getting slightly more sophisticated and slightly more subtle, because it's less about physical things that you're taking, but other forms of stealing. So you have a plagiarist in academia. You plagiarize, you take somebody's ideas, somebody's words, and pass them off as your own. You become a literary thief. You're not able to bring your own ideas into perspective. In this day of being online and, web-based and technology-based interfaces, we have hackers who are able to steal information. We have grafters in the gambling, who are able to ensure dishonest, gambling devices. And then we become more sophisticated, and we have blackmailers who have sophisticated ways of thieving. We have embezzlers, one who steals money they've been trusted with, especially from perhaps their employer. But we also have defaulters, those who fail to, fulfill an obligation or perform a task, especially if it's a legal or financial one. And then when somebody's really addicted to stealing, we call them a kleptomaniac. They cannot, not help themselves, when it comes to thievery. Now, what we know is it might start off as petty crime, petty thief, a few sweets or a few coins for a sweet, or, but then it may become more large scale. And especially when we're talking about heists and hijacking and things like that, then, you start seeing it evolving into the propensity to becoming into gangs, or, into things like smuggling. And then it can expand into becoming murderers or assassins. And ultimately, once we have reached, even from the most pettiest, right up to the most grossest aspects where thievery can take us, we become criminals, those who are involved in crime. And when it is serious enough, then they become a felon, one who's really, convicted of very serious crime that really needs incarceration. And there's so many more words, about thieves. There's, words I'd never heard of before: purloiner, percolator, depredator, larcenist, all of this, meaning thieves. So thievery, theft, is something that is, very much on our consciousness as society and as humanity. And when one is a thief, they have certain characteristics. They may be burglarious, they may be thievish, they may be furtive, they may be stealthy, they may be larcenous, they have all these characteristics that are associated with a thief. And something I found really interesting is that what is considered to be thievery, or a characteristic of thievery, is being mercurial. That is, having or using a lot of mercury. Now, why would this be interesting? And when we now come into our African understanding, indigenous understanding, we know that when we speak of the planet Mercury, we're actually speaking about a particular deity or archetypal being. And this deity or archetypal being is called Sebek. Now, I'll go into Sebek a little later, but we start to understand now what we're talking about from an indigenous, perspective. But just looking at all of these, definitions or synonyms or characteristics of thieves, granted, anyone who fits into any one of these categories becomes suspicious. We have a suspicion of them. And as you said in your proverb, sometimes they just have to keep running because, they get caught up in that. And so what are the solutions, for thieves? Usually they are, taken into the criminal justice system. If it's petty, they may be fined, they may be taken out on bail, or they may be incarcerated. And the jails are full of those who are thieves in one form or the other. But many of the times these jails are flooding, these prisons are flooding with those who are on the less sophisticated forms of thievery. When I was going through it, I went from petty thieves, all the way to the most sophisticated. And they're full of those, who are on the less sophisticated sides of thievery. And I think if we're to look at this, and interrogate it, we then need to look at why is this? And it means if we're coming from Africa here and many of the indigenous lands, we cannot ignore issues of property laws. Remember, one of the definitions of thievery is taking somebody else's property, But we cannot ignore the colonial theft of, property, We cannot ignore the history of expropriation. We cannot ignore the structural violences of the system that have been brought by colonization. And all of these that feed into why those who are on the less sophisticated forms of thievery are filling our jails, many times because they have been appropriated, expropriated, by the system, by their ancestral of their ancestral lands, of their ancestral property, but are now in a system that will incarcerate them. And coming from South Africa, which is the highest Gini coefficient, it is a country with the highest rates of inequality. And here in South Africa, it is very easy to get a single road separating the most affluent to those in the most abject, poverty. And you will often see massive mansions on the one side of the road, and then you have shacks on the other side of the road. And those living in the shacks are merely trying to survive. Many of those are in the petty, theft category, but many of those are the ones that are filling the prison cells. Many of those are the target groups of the criminal justice system. And how does the system create both the higher and the lower levels of thievery? Because to maintain that side of the road with the mansion, many times there are those who collude in the more sophisticated forms of thievery. And then those on the other side of the road in the shacks, are, engaging in the petty crime and sometimes becoming more violent as the need for survival, increases. And so in what ways is our current society and our current systems self-perpetuating thieves? And this is why we can have almost 50 synonyms for one word, which is a thief. And so our lives are filled with suspicion. Now, there is quite a popular, cartoon, and usually this cartoon, tries to show the difference between equality and equity. And I'm not sure, if you've seen it, when they're showing equality, they have a fence. The cartoon has a fence, and there's a pedestal on another side of this wall, not a fence, but a wall. And there are people trying to look on the other side, to watch a game or to see what's happening on the other side of the wall. Except that one of them is really, really tall, and they have full access to see, the full view on the other side of the wall. The other one is medium height and they're just able to get their head, over the wall to see. And the other one is a child who is so short that they're not able to see beyond the wall, And this, if we're saying them being on the same size pedestal is equality, it assumes that everybody benefits from the same supports, and that it's considered to be equal treatment, except there is one, who has an advantage, and therefore they don't have the same access. And then when they show equity instead, they then take the pedestal of the very tall person and they allow it to bolster the one who's very short and cannot see across, so that now they are all on the same footing, and they can all have the same equitable access to see beyond the field. But then when they expand that cartoon, there's the part which says, what is reality? And the reality is that you have some people who have 10 pedestals and, they're standing on the top. They happen to be the tallest and they have not only kind of the full view of the field, but a complete bird's eye view all the way into the horizon. The reality is also that there are those who perhaps have adequate support to be able to see their head over the wall. But the reality is that there's some who are not even on level ground, in that the ground has actually been, carved out and dug in. And there are those that are even struggling to be above the ground, And this is what we talk about when we speak about the inequality here, especially here in South Africa, many times separated by a single road, And so when this cartoon is expanded further, it then speaks to justice. What would it mean if there were justice? And in one such, in the cartoon, they actually removed the wall. They removed the wall altogether so that everybody can have access to the game, to the rules of the game, without having a systemic barrier that, stands within it. And then when they expand this even further, they talk about inclusion, and inclusion is when they're all not just observing the game, with no wall, but they're also included as part of the game. There are no barriers at all to the ability to be in. And when there are none of this, this is liberation. And then I'd just like to add a bit further more, in this cartoon and say we also need to be looking at equanimity. And when I'm speaking about equanimity, this is what will then take me into what we mean from an African indigenous perspective. Now, when I was going through the characteristics of what a thief is, I said, one of the most interesting I found is that they're mercurial, that they have the attribute of Mercury. And from our indigenous perspective, Mercury is the planet that governs Sebek. Sebek is also known as Eshu, as Elegba, amongst the Yoruba as Mpungushe. And we see Sebek in many, many stories in our African folklore. We have the stories of the hare, we have the stories of the fox, we have the stories of the hyena. And usually he's very clever, and he's a trickster. He's a scammer, you know. But his true purpose is to be a messenger of the gods, you know. But sometimes he forgets this because he's a trickster and he thinks the ends justifies the means. And therefore he thinks thievery might be important in order to, to achieve a certain, objective, when he's on his negative side, because in our indigenous cosmology, there's not necessarily a good and evil. Every attribute has a positive and negative, attribute, and when he thinks the ends justifies the means, he may be subject to trickery that leads to thievery, and this is why he needs to be an excellent communicator. But he also inspects the heart. He inspects the heart to make sure it is living according to truth. And when we're speaking about truth, we're speaking about Ma'at, we're speaking about Ubuntu here in the South. He is the embalmer. He is the one who's doing that inspection in the afterlife when you go on from this realm into the nether realms, towards the realms of ancestry. He's inspecting to see how did you live your life, and in that way he's able to be in the form of Apwat or Anpu, the opener of the way. And so from our perspective, indigenous perspective, everything was about how you lived Ma'at. If we go back into the ancient axiom of Kemet, where Ma'at was the rule and moral justice of Kemet, but it was also a divine cosmological order, within all disciplines, whether it was in mythology or astronomy or medicine or sociology, economics, politics, in education, Ma'at reigned supreme. And it's, we know Ma'at is often depicted as a winged goddess, a female with an ostrich, feather in her hair. Sometimes she carries a scale with the heart on one side and with a feather on the other side. And, there that denotes that if your heart is as light as a feather, then you're living according to truth, to love, and to divine law. She governs lightness of heart. Now, what's very interesting, if we look into our modern, when we speak about the criminal justice system, usually law is depicted by scales as well, except there's nothing in the scales. So it's not clear what it is that is being balanced against each other. Whereas in Kemet, it was that the heart was balanced, against the feather. And when you're lightness of heart, then you're one who understands divine law. Then you're one who understands interdependence, interconnectedness, and interrelatedness. Then you're one who understands order. Then you're one who understands holisms or systems of generosity, sharing, sharing of wealth, sacred economics, synthesis. And when one is in Ma'at, there's no way that there can be what we see here in South Africa or in that reality, where on one side of the road is a shack and on the other side of the road is a multi-billion rand mansion. And so Sebek, this mercurial being, who's associated with the thief is actually the one who inspects the heart. And he inspects the heart to make sure it is as light as a feather. And when it is as light as a feather, then you're said to be ma'akaru, to be true of word, to be true of deed, to be true of voice. And this inspection is not just an inspection that one reaches on Judgment Day beyond this life. But in Kemet, this inspection was something you did every single day in a state of self-judgment. And we may know of the weighing of the heart that we did with the scale, with the 42 laws or the 42 declarations or the negative confessions or whatever it is called of Ma'at, that one judges yourself by day in and day out, in order to see whether you've lived according to the principles that is able to bring about interdependence, interconnectedness, and interrelatedness. And what's very interesting about these 42 laws is that at least 10 of the 42 are directly linked to the principle of theft. Whether it is about committing robbery or stealing food or swindling or stealing from the gods or stealing land of others, stealing others' property, taking something from a child. At least 10 of them speak about theft. So theft was very important, in Kemet as a principle, because it speaks to the fact that none of us are exempt from being in any one of those characterizations of thief, any one of those synonyms. It is very easy to tap into that. It might be the smallest thing. It might be the slightest act of plagiarism, which could then escalate. And this creates a world full of suspicion. And so, and this increasingly leads to conflicts, increasingly leads to violences, increasingly leads to the plethora of social ills, and increasingly leads to the system that we live in that keeps perpetuating this thievery. And why is this? Because we are not cultivating ourselves in the way our ancestors used to cultivate ourselves. Because in order to lessen the effect of thievery, we need to increase our ability to be divine. And so we find even in our Bantu, or in not just in Kemet, that there were ways of dealing with thievery, or theft or thieves. In some cases, it would be quite extreme, where a thief would get their hand cut off so that they do not do it again, but so that it restores the fact that they're not able to commit that crime. But we also get here, in Africa, that sometimes many of the sacred caves, the sacred chambers, were used to house deities with an all-seeing eye. So for instance, amongst the Igbo, there's a sacred cave, where they said it housed the deity called Ogba, who has the all-seeing eye, and that no human could escape Ogba. And if someone was a thief, Ogba could detect this crime. And when a person was accused of a crime, he or she would be made to enter the cave to prove his or her innocence. And if he or she returned, then everyone would consider the person to be innocent. However, if they did not return alive, they would consider it to be guilty. So it is this being inside this cave, which would be able to be the judge, the right judge of whether or not you're a thief. But what we know from indigenous African spirituality is that a cave is actually a symbol of our inner subconscious. So when you're entering a cave, and when we see many rituals in the caves, it's also a journey into our own liminal spaces, and into our own senses of consciousness. So the entry into the cave is also the entry into our own ability to self-declare, for instance, and to declare ourselves innocent or non-guilty of thievery, to declare ourselves as ma'akeru. And we also see this, for instance, amongst the Moshi, of Burkina Faso or Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire, where they have particular earth deities or ancestors which originate in what is called the Menam, which is the manifestation of the life force of Wende, and the priests, the Tenga Soba or the earth priests, have to ensure that all rituals are done, in order to honor Tenga wind and or to honor, the earth. And, there are all sorts of taboos that are, created to ensure this. But if a violation, such as theft, including stealing, or taking more than you need from our planet or Mother Earth, if including not ensuring its, fertility, when and or if it is about taking objects of value, and not allowing them to be on the earth shrines, it then would break off your relationship with the earth. Your relationship with all of connection, of creation, would be cut off, and therefore that goes back to our interdependence, interconnectedness, and interrelatedness. And so, in many ways, some of the rehabilitating ways of our African ancestors and our African indigenous ways was not punishment by putting one in a cell, which are flooding because of a system that self-perpetuates, the thievery, but it would be about reminding you about who you truly are. Reminding you of your true essence and your true nature. Because many times when we resort to thievery or anything that may be criminality, it is because we have forgotten who we are. And so from an Indigenous African perspective, we have to cultivate our spirits because we are indivisible dualities, both individually and as a collective. It is less about punishment, but more about restoration. And when we restore, we can regenerate, and therefore we're not always under suspicion.
Thank you, Gogo. Wow. I could listen to you all day, I just feel privileged, to sit under this little shade of the tree and just take in everything that you offered to us today. And I want to thank you all who are with us on Clubhouse and also on YouTube. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us for today's session of the Daily African Proverbs. We have been discussing a proverb from Somalia. The proverb itself says that a thief is always under suspicion. A thief is always under suspicion. And so Gogo Rutendo Ngara, as usual, is our guest here every Thursday. And, Gogo began by sharing with us her interpretation of this proverb. And then we went into, what does African spirituality say about this proverb? What does indigenous African wisdom say about this proverb? And, I want you to start thinking about your own interpretation of this proverb, because in a moment we want to hear your voices as well. But in the meantime, I want to ask you who are in the room on Clubhouse to take a minute and ping in, 3 to 5 of your friends to join us for this conversation, and also share the link to this room on Twitter, and you can clip some of the nuggets that you're getting and share it as well on Twitter or Instagram. But if you're on YouTube, I hope that you're also leaving us with your comments so that we know that you're following. We want to hear your voices, whether it's just through typing. So remember again to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I have some key announcements to make, so stay tuned. I have some Africa Day related announcements to make in just a moment, so stay tuned with us as we continue on with the conversation. Gogo, is there any way you would also share with us now, if our elder Credo Mutua would have been alive today and we were here with him for this conversation, what would he say about this proverb? And do you have any excerpt from some of his works that you want to share, or just your perspectives about what he would say?
Let me share a little bit of a reading, a bit of a story. And this is from Indaba My Children. It says, in the great forests known as Zimbabwe, there's a huge hollow idol representing the ultimate mother, who is said to be the mother of the Great Spirit. And those who believe thus look upon the Great Spirit as the eternal Pikanin of the ultimate mother, because they feel that the Great Spirit holds the universe like a child holds a toy. Within this great idol is an altar above which sat a small idol of bronze, an idol that always glowed as if red hot, because within it was a mysterious stone with particular or peculiar radiating qualities called the Eye of Ordu. Some say the stone is about the size of a baby's head. Very few men have seen the stone inside the bronze idol, and those who have died shortly afterwards. It is said that if one is exposed to the naked radiance of the stone, one's flesh starts to rot while one is still alive, and will come off one's bones in a mass of noceum putrefaction. If a man is exposed to the radiation of the naked stone, he dies. But when the rays are filtered through the body of the bronze idol and fall upon the man, he ceases to be an ordinary man. He becomes a superior being, a half god, and he can then see and do things no ordinary man can do. He can even become an immortal. And nobody is allowed inside the idol of the ultimate mother. And the only people who have had the privilege of exposing themselves to the mysterious filtered radiation of the idol of the eye are the high chief, the Munmutaba of Luvititi, and his first wife Namutaba, and also a dozen warrior priests specially appointed to guard the great idol. It was always said that nobody would ever dare try to steal the glowing bronze idol, and the proverb, as safe as the bronze idol, had become one of the most quoted in the empire of Luvijiti. My father, Munengu, who was a famous thief and who emigrated from the land of the Baluba far to the north into the empire of Luvijiti, with my mother long before I was born, decided to attempt to steal the well-guarded bronze idol after my mother had playfully taunted him and actually challenged him to steal it as something more spectacular than stealing cattle. Much to my dismay and my mother's horror, my father succeeded. He drugged the drinking water of the two guards and calmly walked away with the idol while they lay there, prostrate across the entrance to the great idol. We realized he had gone too far this time, and we fled northwards across the plains with the idol still in our possession. 2 months later, we crossed the Zambezi into the land of the Nguni. For a few months, my father hid the idol in a hole inside our hut. But one day he made the fatal mistake of boasting about his feat in the presence of Mukingo during a beer drinking feast. Vamba and Mukingo seized him and tortured all the information they wanted out of him. They then staked him to the ground and burnt him by lighting a big fire across his body. That same night, they raided our kraal and killed my mother. However, I escaped by hiding in a grain pit. Mukingo's raiders found the idol, of course, and took it to their leader who hid it. Nobody knows where. Because neither Vamba nor Mukingo had seen me before, I succeeded as posing as a Vamangwe Sangoma woman and being drawn into their foul schemes against Malandila. My sole purpose was to try and find out where Mukingo had hidden the bronze idol, recover it, and then have Vamba and Mukingo pay for murdering my parents. So far, I have still failed to discover where the idol is hidden. When it is found, I wish to see it personally that it is returned to Luvijiti before it falls into the hands of yet more unscrupulous men and before the spies now swarming all over the land of the Nguni send a messenger to the Munumutaba confirming their suspicion that the ones who stole the idol and now possess it are in fact in the land of the Nguni. In that case, the Munumutaba's armies would invade the land of the Nguni and recover the idol by force. In an open war with the Munumutaba, the Nguni would be exterminated because so powerful are the armies of Luvijiti that nothing on earth can stand in the way. I do not want the Nguni race to be wiped out simply because of my father's silly prank. So, in reading this, I think it is quite clear that what was a silly prank, just a silly, a dare from the wife to the mother could potentially escalate into war that, makes a whole peoples be exterminated. And so, what Kwedomuto is saying in this is that there are consequences of thievery. And we must always be mindful that what may seem to be a tiny action can actually have a monumental effect. And just like they say in chaos theory, that one flap of a butterfly's wings in one part of the world can cause a tsunami in the other. There are consequences to our actions. But something else, though, that Kredomuto would say is that it would be, and as was a practice in many of Southern Africa, was that rather than necessarily going into punishment, as we've said, the action towards the criminal would be to remind them of their true nature and to do certain rituals to remind them, to find out what it is that's missing in their sense of being, in order to reintegrate them in towards the complete being, which includes the being of not only being human but also being divine.
Thank you so much. Yeah, there's so much. I feel that just out of our conversation, since we started doing this Thursday series, there's definitely a book already, or a community will be built out of it. There's a village for sure, a virtual village that has been built out of it. And one thing that I also really want to do as a result is to get myself a copy of Indaba, My Children. It's one of my dreams. I haven't gotten a copy yet. But I do want to thank you again, Gogo, and I want you to just stay here with me for a moment while we hear from our wonderful friends and guests and speakers who are with us on Clubhouse. I also want to thank those who have joined us on YouTube, MJWell, Brother Earth, who is also on YouTube and Clubhouse, and Goddess, I see you. And I want to start with you, brother. Just briefly share with us where you're joining us from, what today's proverb from Somalia means to you, and if you have any comments or feedback to Gogo Rutendo Ngara, who is our special guest today. Thank you.
Peace and love, Simon. This brother Irv, I'm calling from North Carolina. And if I may say, I see where Go-Go got the name Go-Go, because when she just started going, she was just going and going and going. And as she was talking, it felt like I could feel my brain grow. She was dropping so much information and going so in depth on the thief. And I just wanted to say gratitude and honors to her for all that study and information she brought forth. But for myself, um, what it made me think of when I first read it was it's an old saying that the elders used to say, if you walk like a duck, quack like a duck, it must be a duck. And understanding that we are nature creatures of habit, and if you tend to have that type of habit, a lot of times it can manifest again. That's why one is always under suspicion. And as the sister Go-Go was speaking, she went into about reality, and it made me think. One time I went fishing with one of my uncles. I was a little peewee, and he had some little snacks in his bag, and I stole and ate one of his snacks, and he asked me, "Have you seen my crackers?" I said, "Nah, I ain't seen them crackers." He said, "Let me tell you something, boy." He said, "There's two things I hate, and that's a liar and a thief." And he said, "Really, when you tell a lie to me, you are a thief because you are stealing my reality and only leaving me with an illusion." So that made me, you know what I mean? I really thought on that, and it made me not want to steal a lie anymore. And that's what I add to the conversation for today. Again, honors to you, Simon, for the platform, as well as Go for all the wonderful knowledge. Peace and love, family.
Wow, peace and love to you. You're making Gogo smile, especially by the beginning of your share today. It made me smile too, because I'd never thought about Gogo as go. You know? Anyhow, thank you for your wisdom and contribution. Steve, how are you? Where are you joining us from? And what are your perspectives on today's proverb from Somalia? For those who are just joining us, I just want to share what this proverb is here. It says, a thief is always under suspicion. A thief is always under suspicion. This is an amazing Somalia proverb that we've learned so much about today, especially from Gogo Rutendo Ngara. And again, for those who are meeting Gogo Rutendo Ngara for the first time, she's in South Africa. She's originally from Zimbabwe, and she's a very evolved spiritual leader, healer, and we are very lucky she's joining us and leading a segment during Africa Day that she's going to speak about towards the end of our time. So you don't want to leave, because she has curated a team of other healers and artists and visual artists. It's just incredible. So just stay tuned and you will learn more about what Gogo has prepared for us for Africa Day. 2 hours of this type of experience, and even better. So Steve, I think Steve is on the phone. So Lavender, I'll come straight to you. How are you? Where are you joining us from? What does this proverb mean to you? Thank you so much.
Hi, Simon. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Gogo. It's amazing to hear you again today. My name is Lavender. In Nairobi, Kenya. My thoughts about today's proverb, why thieves are always under suspicion, is that once you do something or people know that you're a thief or you've stolen from people before, they'll always have you as a suspect anytime anything goes missing. And there's so when I look at life in general, the examples I can relate this proverb with is like in relationships. If you're a person who's known to be a bad friend, always doing wrong by your friends, going behind your friends' back to do things to them, it will finally be noticeable to other people. However, you try to hide it. When you do something to one person and then the next and the next, you'll be known for it. So you will lose trust with people around you. I'm Lavender and I'm done speaking.
Thank you so much, Lavender, for your contribution. I appreciate you, taking the time and just supporting this incredible work that we're doing together. Now I want to move on to Sensors. I think Steve is still on the phone, so we will move on to Sensors. Sensors, how are you? Where are you joining us from? What are your perspectives on this proverb? And also take space and share about Africa Day and what everyone in the room can do in regards to supporting Africa Day.
Hi, Simon. Hello, Gogo Rutendo. Great to be in your midst, and welcome to everyone who is in the room. What an interesting proverb that you brought up. But before that, let me talk about Africa Day. So Africa Day is next week, 25th of May, 2022. We have an exciting lineup. Our program is based on the theme from the AU, and it is about sustaining a healthy Africa, a healthy and educated Africa. As such, we will have discussions on spirituality, on health.
We lost you, Sensors. You might be speaking, but we can't hear you. Again, if you're just joining us, this is the Daily African Proverbs. We are live streaming on YouTube. Thank you to everyone who is joining us there right now. Census is back. Go ahead, Census.
Okay, sorry about that.
Just start over,
Siri
please.
took over. Siri took over my phone.
I see. Too many gadgets, right?
Yes. Hi, everyone. This is Census. Welcome to the African Father in America Club. Great to have you all. I just want to take us down a quick break on Africa Day. Africa Day is coming up next week, 25th May 2022. It is exciting because we have a 24-hour lineup of different shows, different discussions, and it's based on the theme on sustaining a healthy Africa, healthy, thriving, both body, mind, and mentally, and physically as well. So this is really a great room. I hope some of you will join us. It's on the Africa Day Club. Each session will be based on a different topic. Some sessions are 1 hour, others are 2 hours. We'll be starting from Asia, looking at the African experience there, and just go across into the region and the Americas, including our diaspora and the Caribbean. We have a session on Jamaica, 60th anniversary of independence, so please join us on that. We have an important session that would be led by Gogo Rutendo on African spirituality and wisdom, taking us back to our identity, our roots, and the missing part in our soul that some of us do not know what to connect to. So that would be a 2-hour session, a really important one, because as you have heard her today, she brings with her wealth of knowledge and just reminding us of our reality. Our other sessions will be on nutrition, and we'll also have sessions on health and education, as well as technology. So please join us, follow the Africa Day Club. We have planning sessions on Saturday, and we'll be having breakout rooms across the week leading on to it, as well as share it with other people. We are happy for those who are able to work on the publicity and volunteer. We honor that, and we are really glad to have all of you. Thank you for that. And now I'm going to go to the proverb, why thieves are always under suspicion. My father once told me that always be righteous whether you are awake or at night. And this came up because some people in leadership got caught up in some kind of corruption case. And it was something that they didn't give it too much thought, almost an oversight, which ended them off work and in jail. Someone that we knew that wasn't always going on that path, but that one moment when they closed their eyes, that was it. They got caught in it. And he literally just said, be awake all the time and be alert all the time. With positions comes responsibility. Those responsibility have power. But then he always said that we live a simple life. We don't have fences. We don't have security. We don't have guns at home. And that is because he has nothing to hide, nor has he have any suspicion. So keeping yourself on the right track gives you peace. Otherwise, you will always be watching, seeing who is coming after you for whatever thing you feel guilty of. It might not be something big, but you feel guilty of it, and it will haunt you. This is Census. I'm complete.
Wow, Census, thank you so much for your contributions as well. I truly appreciate you. And yes, what you said is true. Always stay awake, always be conscious, even in your sleep, especially if you are in a leadership position. You always have to be aware that There are many eyes. The more power you have, the more responsibility you have. Stella, how are you? And where are you joining us from? And what are your thoughts on this incredible Somalia proverb?
Hi Simon, I'm good. I'm joining from Kenya. Hello everyone in the room. I'm happy to be here. Today's proverb is whenever I see it, I just find myself laughing. I don't know why, but I think because thieves are always lying. So I think the proverb is like a warning to us and to everyone who interacts with it that you should not trust someone who is lying, because they're always lying to cover up something, and then when you're about to find out the truth, they come up with another lie to cover it up again, and that is something that can destroy lives. So the proverb, to me, it's like a warning that you should always put them under suspicion so that they don't end up destroying your life. There's a time there was this story in Kenya.
Hey, Stella, you just went mute as well.
About
Oh, go ahead.
guys are always lying to cover up something, and then at the end of the day, people kill each other and it's destroying lives. So yeah, I think that's why I laugh whenever I'm interacting with this proverb. Otherwise, I'm happy to be here and I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stella. I'm so happy you're here as well. I want to go on to Jay. Jay, how are you? And where are you joining us from? And what are your perspectives on today's incredible proverb? But just before you speak, Jay, I want to invite anyone who wants the updated Africa Day promo pictures. Send me a direct message on Instagram, And currently we are making the red ones for volunteers, people who can go across Clubhouse and social media to help with promoting Africa Day. We have now secured enough speakers and moderators, so we need your help. We need your involvement. Whether you can just promote for a day. If you're working during Africa Day, remember it's 24 hours, so you can still attend some of the sessions. I'll speak more in depth about it, and I'll also create space for Gogo to share a little more in depth about the session that she's preparing for us. So go ahead, Jay. Thank you again for your continued support.
Good morning, Brother Simon, and everyone in this room. I'm coming to you from Seattle. And yes, I just put it in my bio, and every time I go into a room, I talk about Africa Day because I'm thrilled. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Regarding the proverb, oh, go, she just fills us with pearls of wisdom. I'm kind of like Simon. I just love hearing the rhythm of her voice and the stories and the wisdom that she shares. It is so enriching and enlightening and empowering, and stories truly do feed our souls and feed our spirits. So when it comes to being a thief, I've heard this saying so many times, that I truly believe it, that once a thief, always a thief. And when I was listening to Brother, it was just so true. He's got that real, rich, down to earth, homegrown wisdom that's straight out of the soil of the South. And, I can just hear my parents talking when I hear Brother speak. So, and one of the things that would come up in our family, if something is missing and they know it should be there and they know they put it there, is they're looking. Remember when so and so stole such and such? And now everyone's looking at this person, even if they're innocent, because at some point you stole such and such. And once a thief, always a thief. Thank you so much. And this is Jade. I'm done speaking.
Yeah, it's a very terrible legacy. Once a thief, always a thief. Okay, we'll go on to digital humanitarian. Thank you, my brother, for joining us. Share with us where you're joining from, what this proverb means to you, and if you have any comments in regards to our current conversation, we would welcome it. And then from there, we'll go on to Gogo Rutendo Ngara, who is my special guest. In case you don't know, we are live streaming. We are on YouTube as we speak, and we are also here on Clubhouse. And we would love for you to join us on YouTube and subscribe to my channel so that when we do this again, you are amongst one of the first people to be notified, especially if you push the bell button on YouTube, the notification button, so that you are truly notified. Now, my brother, how are you? Share, the space is yours.
Simon, can I speak maybe in the next 10 minutes? I'm in the middle of something. Apologies.
Yes, of course. Now, I'll come back to you, Steve. Earlier on, you are on a phone call. Do you want to just take a moment, share with us where you're joining us from, what today's proverb from Somalia means to you, and also, if you have any perspectives in regards to what Gogo Rutendo Ngara was sharing with us today. For the sake of those who are just joining us, the proverb from Somalia that we are discussing says that a thief is always under suspicion. Thank you, Steve.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here with all of you. I'm Steven, joining from Kisumu, Kenya. And today's proverb is just interesting one. And what is coming to my mind is a Luo proverb that says, Simon, you'll kindly help me translate this. Jaricho rengo kaonge ng'ama lawe.
Yeah, Steve, that's exactly what I said at the beginning of this room. Yeah, so thank you for thinking about what I was thinking about.
Yeah,
It's true.
yeah. So, sometimes you might not be a thief, but the moment you appear and act and walk in the ways of a thief, you will definitely be fitting into the shoes of a thief. So you need not to be guilty if you have no reason to be guilty. And if you are not a good person, or if you are not doing something right, and if you are not an honest person, you will not always want to be around people of your caliber. So that is what I would take for this proverb. And about Gogo Rotendo, man, I can't stop listening to Gogo Rotendo's proverbs and the way it translates these proverbs to our own proverb. It's always just amazing and just sweet listening to her taking us through these sessions. Thank you again, Simon. That was my time.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Steve, for your contribution. And welcome, Evelyn. Welcome, Sambaza and Alpha and Abrafi and Laron. I know you're all in the audience. Oh, I do see Lakeli and Shakro also joining us in the audience. We turned off hand raising, and we will create more space tomorrow, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will be here again. Remember, it's Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we love doing this. So next week, it's Wednesday that we will not be doing the daily African Proverbs because it's Africa Day. So the whole of that 24 hours, we will be live, in the Africa Day Club. My dear Gogo Rutendo Ngara, how are you doing? And what did you grasp from our shares, from our friends that just contributed? And also, after you reflect on that, share with us a little bit about what excites you about Africa Day. You've worked so hard to, bring an incredible team together.
Thank you so much, Simon. And thank you so much to this village, as you said. What a beautiful community and what a beautiful village. And it's beautiful how this village is able to always with one seed create a whole field in terms of all the nuggets that come from everybody. And so to all the sisters and brothers, I give gratitude. And what's really coming forth for me in terms of the various reflections was that it is very clear from what everybody's saying that when we're speaking a thief, we're not just speaking about physical property. We're not just speaking about the intangible, the tangibles, but we're also speaking about that which is intangible. We're speaking about relationships. I loved what brother said about you stealing my reality and leaving me with illusion. You're stealing people's realities. You're creating an imbalance. And this is what we speak about when we say we're going away from Ma'at, going away from Ubuntu. And when there's that imbalance, then there's no reason to trust in the system, because there is that lack of imbalance. And when it goes to its extreme, as Sister Census was saying, then we see corruption, which is just thievery in its systematized and its entrenched extreme. And and corruption breeds corruption, and breeds even more corruption. So thievery breeds thievery and even more thievery. And then, as Mama Stella has been saying, you're always having to cover something up. You actually, thievery is also lying, is its untruth. So it's everything that is not ma'at, if we're speaking about truth, And so I guess the reflection is there redemption? Once you steal that one spoon of sugar, is there redemption? And I'd like to say, even though once a thief, always a thief has been said, once that propensity is there, if we are able to tap into our consciousness and cultivate our spirits, there is the potential for that redemption. And Brother Steve somehow reminded me of last week's proverb as well. Basically that if you act like a thief, eventually you'll start walking in the feet of or the shoes of that thief. Which last week's was talking about, you are who you pretend to be. So it can also be converse. You can also pretend your way into a negative state of being. So I give gratitude for all the reflections, because once again, this one seed, became, a whole field to harvest.
Gogo, I just wanted to add something there real quick that I meant to add when Stephen was speaking. In Kenya, where both Steve and I grew up, especially in the slum, in the ghetto, if you hear shika yeye, catch him, that means a thief is being chased, a thief is being chased. And thieves were also good actors, so the thief would then start chasing another person. so so if you're unlucky, the thief would just say, it's him, So if you're unlucky, people would descend on you for no apparent reason, so it's hard to, I think sometimes you should just pray that you're in the right place at the right time, because you never know who is the real thief,
Absolutely. The masters of deception. Once more, that civic archetype, which is what it is. Yes. So you wanted me to speak about Africa Day, and thank you so much to
I would
everybody
love
who's
that.
made contributions. And thank you so much, Simon, for inviting me into the Africa Day program this year. And for us, you've asked me to curate a segment on exploring African indigenous spirituality. And so what we'd like to do with that segment is to actually have an experiential touch into African spirituality, as opposed to a 2-hour talk, which can be quite laborious. And so what we're wanting to do is to perhaps step out of the cognitive faculty and allow whoever will join us into a ceremony of sort, because ultimately African spirituality is about ceremony and ritual, that is supposed to be, in one way, a collective experience. And so I've, as you mentioned, invited an incredible team of healers who heal in different ways, explore their spirituality in different ways. One of them is a chef, so her spirituality and her calling is through food. One of them is a movement specialist. She's a dancer, so it is through movement. We have got a polyphonic artist. We have a chantress, we have multimedia artists, visual artists, womb healer, they all, and an ancestral medicine practitioner who will be coming in to join in the conversation and the shared ritual, so to speak, for those 2 hours. And it will be, I believe, from 1 a.m. Pacific time until 3 a.m. Pacific time. For me here in South Africa, it will be from 10 to 12 in the morning. So I'm really looking forward to being in ceremony as we explore African Indigenous spirituality for Africa Day.
Thank you so much, Gogo. If you want to catch that program, remember to, number one, follow the Africa Day Club, here on Clubhouse. And also, we are going to be posting a lot today and until, and even after Africa Day, using Africa Day as the hashtag and also Africa Day 2022 as the hashtag across all social media platforms. So, another way you can be involved that is really, really helpful, especially for Clubhouse, is for you to change your profile picture so that it's the Africa Day profile that some of us have in the room. For example, if you are a moderator, you'll have the green one like Sensors or Tiff or Lavender or myself. If you are a volunteer who is helping us with promoting the event across Clubhouse, you're going to have the red one that Steve and Stella has. And then if you're a speaker, you are going to have the yellow, the golden, colors on your profile picture. So if you can update those as soon as possible, if possible now or today, and then go to other rooms on Clubhouse and let people know that Africa Day is happening May 25th, next Wednesday, for 24 hours. And we are going to bring incredible guests, including Gogo Rutendo Ngara, who is with us today. And Gogo, I want to just thank you so much for taking your time and for, giving every Thursday. And for those who are just joining us, we've come to the tail end of our time together today. We've been hosting Gogo Rutendo Ngara, discussing a Somalia proverb that says, "A thief is always under suspicion." We learned so much from Gogo today, what this proverb means to her. We learned, what this proverb means from an African indigenous spiritual perspective, and also what Credo Mutua, who is an author and a polymath, what he would say about this proverb if he was still alive today. Gogo is deeply involved with Credo's foundation. Gogo, do you want to speak about that briefly, and also how everyone can stay connected with you?
Yes, as you say, I've been involved with the Credo Mutua Foundation, which is a foundation that's aimed at promoting the legacy of great polymath Credo Mutua. Isanusi is what we call him here. And he was actually known worldwide for just his incredible ability to tap into African spirituality, but the universal spirituality that governs, all of our creation. And but beyond that, he was many things: an archaeologist, he was a painter, he was a philosopher, he was a teacher, he was a cosmologist, he was so many things. He really activated so many different aspects of his being. And he was in essence an institution. And so what the Credo Mutua Foundation seeks to do is to say, how do we unravel all the codes that he left us in his almost 100 years of life, and to see what is the institution that evolves from there. So that is part of the work that we do. And that is also in collaboration with Ancient Wisdom Africa, Ancient Wisdom Foundation, where we work with indigenous communities, and also with indigenous wisdom and indigenous knowledge systems as a whole, in valorizing and legitimizing and seeing what its relevance is for the times that we're in. And I do believe there is a website. I'm not very good with social media and things like that. Maybe there's a part of me that really is a go-go, that is, in the inner realms, but we do have, websites and the ability to contact us via our Facebook pages, etc. So
No
yes, thank
problem.
you.
We will do the social media part for you. Just send the to-do list. Yeah, you're doing enough already. Now, before we finish, I just want to be respectful to Digital Humanitarian. You needed 10 minutes. Is this a good time for you to speak and just share your thoughts on the proverb before we wrap up? I just want to give you a moment. Hey, Tess, nice to see you. Tiff, Evelyn, Sambaza, all of you are deeply appreciated. Thank you for making the time to join us. Okay, Philip is not available. Now we are going to wrap up, and we will see you in the streets of Clubhouse. We will be moving around promoting Africa Day, and tomorrow we will be here again for this regular daily African Proverbs. Take care of yourselves. Peace and love.
African father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Africa, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okello, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.